Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and welcome to Empowering You, Cultivating Mindful Self-Advocacy in Law School. This is another one of our events with the Mindfulness in Law Society. My name is Simone Yap. I am currently a 3L at Northeastern University School of Law and member at large 1 for the National Black Law Students Association. Today, we have two phenomenal speakers, attorney Shayla Bowles and attorney Stephanie Lewis. And today, just really discussing just about what self-advocacy looks like in law school, reflecting on our respective law school experiences, and really learning how to institute boundaries. So allow me to introduce our first speaker, Shayla Bowles. So Ms. Bowles is an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. She joined the Mindfulness in Law Society in 2021 and currently serves as a managing board member and also the chair of the membership committee and a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Collaborative. She joined the firm Peebles, Kidler, Bergen, and Robinson LLP in 2020 and currently works as an associate attorney. She has over 2 years of experience in working for tribes in tribally designated entities concerning matters related to tribal housing and tribal schools. During law school, she gained extensive experience in federal Indian and tribal law as a student attorney for the Indian Legal Clinic for the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at Arizona State University, and as an intern for the Indian Law Division at Utah Legal Services. Attorney Bowles graduated and received an Indian Law certificate from the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law of Arizona State University in 2020, and she's admitted to practice in Arizona, the Navajo Nation, and several other tribal courts. Our second speaker, is Stephanie Lewis. She's a government attorney, national board certified health and wellness coach, and certified mindfulness instructor. She helps busy professionals, including members of the legal community, skillfully manage stress, increase concentration, and release the barriers to performing and achieving personal and professional goals through coaching. Also, she uses mindful meditation and other body practices to achieve these goals. She's also a member of the board of the Mindfulness and Law Society. She has received her Bachelor's of Arts from the Washington University in St. Louis, a Master of Health Services Administration from the University of Michigan, and a JD and an LLM in tax from Georgetown University Law School. I'm so excited to have these wonderful speakers here today and just talk about this amazing topic. I know that as a current law student, I struggle with that all the time, especially as a 1L. So let's get started. I'm just going to pin our amazing speakers. Great. So let's get started. I think the baseline question is, how is advocacy and self-advocacy similar yet different in terms of the self perspective?
Can you clarify that question a little bit for me, Simone, what you mean?
Absolutely. So when someone is advocating, let's say, for a cause or a mission, how does that differ, or is it similar to advocating for yourself, let's say, in personal settings, in law school settings, or even a job setting?
Well, I think there's similarities and differences, of course. One of the major differences, I think, has to do with being much more connected with yourself internally and with your body to figure out what is right for you in terms of your own self-care and self-advocacy. Often when we're advocating as lawyers, our objective is defined for us, right? What it is, why we're doing it and what it is we need to do. Whereas when we're talking about our own self-advocacy, it's a much more personal decision, which requires a high degree of awareness about what it is we need so that we can serve ourselves. And it's not that when you're advocating for others, you don't need to be in touch with your values and priorities and so on and so forth. But there's this extra layer in terms of taking care of you in the process.
Shayla, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I just took a minute for me to think, okay, how to divide this up. But for me, for me personally, I am, like you said, a member of the Navajo Nation. So I feel like a lot of what I bring forward is um, being able to feel comfortable with being me, especially in whatever setting that I'm in, whether it's law school or even as an attorney. I Mindfulness definitely helps me to ease that anxiety that I have, to really just be myself in whichever setting that I'm in. And then you had said that how best to advocate if you have a cause or a mission. So the area of law that I practice is federal Indian law or tribal law. And my purpose in doing that is I do want to advocate for Native communities, or I guess in other words, a minority type of community. So in whatever setting, I do try to bring, I guess, that viewpoint, whether it's a legal viewpoint, and then also I do practice what I am passionate about. So I feel like being a strong Native member in the type of law that I'm in, that is in a way kind of advocating. And then in law school, being passionate about what I want to practice was another way in law school how I advocated for that. So I was very involved in the Indian legal program at this school. Any opportunities that focused on Native issues, I was very strong in that. So I guess in a way, just being passionate and confident about what you want to practice, about who you are, I guess in a way it did advocate for yourself. So I think that's how I would do either scenario for your question.
Awesome. And that really leads into my next question. So, reflecting on the law school experience, and Shayla, I know you touched on this a little bit by talking about advocating for what you practice. How does one outside of, like, let's say, practice areas advocate for themselves in a law school setting where oftentimes it's just expected to, okay, just focus on your education and that's it? So, how do you navigate those boundaries?
So, I mean, I guess I can kind of give a little bit of background. So my first year of law school, I started at the University of Utah, which didn't have an Indian legal program. So I had decided to transfer to Arizona State University because they did. So I knew that that was my passion. And although I had left, and it was a huge risk transferring, I decided to make that my lead and to make that big jump. So at Arizona State, I was lucky that I did have a program that offered so many classes, so many networking opportunities with other Native alumni or even Native law firms. I just was immersed in that. So I was very lucky that I had that. But then I think part of your question was, how do you balance, I guess, what they teach you in general versus what you're focusing on? So at my law school, they do touch on Native issues sometimes in class. So our group was very vocal about making sure that those viewpoints were known and aware. And so just being able to speak up and say, hey, from the Native issues, this is what needs to be brought in the discussion. So those were opportunities. And also with our law student organizations, we had quite a few. There were some topics that were maybe a Native viewpoint needed to be brought to that. So some of our Indian law group would go to those events and make sure that our viewpoint was heard. So not necessarily in a combative sort of way, but we just try to take opportunities to really make sure people understood where we were coming from, and just come in a very informative type way. So I guess, I guess I was kind of lucky because I was immersed in so much that was offered where I did go to law school. but I think in class, you can still, speak up from whichever viewpoint or whatever your passion is. And in a non-class setting also. So, and just to be informative and be aware. So I think that's where you can advocate like that.
Stephanie, do you have any thoughts?
So what occurs to me as Shayla was talking, and I'm looking at this from the wellness perspective, the law student or law professional's wellness, is the importance of connection and well-being. So that engagement in the organizations that Shayla was involved with, or, if you're an African-American student, the Black Law Students Association and so on and so forth, is finding or creating spaces where you feel connected and where you feel a sense of belonging, whether it's in those groups or some other broader group within the organization. To me, that is also a form of self-advocacy.
Yeah, and I think that is so true, especially just thinking about it from current student perspective and really having the practitioner perspective and just being able to really have that retroactive point of view or that point of view in hindsight. So leading to the word practice or practitioner, how have you implemented some of the strategies that you use for self in law school in your current day-to-day practice, especially engaging with so many different personalities, various power structures, and the elitism of the legal field? How do you still advocate for yourself?
Shelley, you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. So I guess your question is, how do you self-advocate in law school and in practice? And then how, you said, how do I use the mindfulness skills? Is that your question?
Yes, essentially applying the skills that you used in law school to advocate for yourself, but now in practice.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess a lot of what I had advocated for myself in law school was, again, really focusing in on what I wanted to practice and why I want to practice what I do is because I do feel a sense of fulfillment, and it is why I went to law school. And again, it was easy to where I did go to law school because I just was immersed in so much opportunity and was exposed to what I did want to practice. And then also while I was in law school, I had already known how to do certain type of mindfulness practices and skills and strategies, which like breathing, like focusing on your breath. So I used that a lot while I was in class and while I was taking tests. So, and what that means is someone who has anxiety, like I have anxiety, it helped me to kind of just ease that and to focus on, okay, what am I doing? What do I want to say? How am I going to be myself and give my perspective? So I did that a lot. And then that skill also helped me with, just doing well on tests and doing well on that part. And I did carry this over into what I do now as an attorney. And to get there, I did take a lot of time to even choose where I wanted to work, what type of law firm, the location. So I think you said briefly in my introduction, I do live in Rapid City, South Dakota, and that's like, what? That is, out in the middle of nowhere, but I knew what I wanted to do for work. I knew what made me happy. And this was just a big thing that I wanted to do. So I had picked a law firm where I have an amazing mentor, which if you do find a mentor, that's just like the biggest thing for me. It's because you have someone that has your back and who's going to teach you the right thing, the right way to be a lawyer. But that's why I moved to South Dakota, is because, I get to practice what I want to. I have a mentor who's going to be there for me, and I get to be myself. get to be Native and I get to work with other Native communities and I get to practice a law that I do. And so I think all of that and I keep saying like what makes you happy, because I think if you are advocating for yourself, if you're choosing only those things that contribute to your happiness. I mean, you get to be you and you're advocating for who you are, but then you also are choosing those things that are going to make you happy in life and make you happy as an attorney. And then also just to touch on like those mindfulness skills, I still do a lot of breathing exercises because I still have that anxiety. So whether it's just presenting, and for example, I just had a hearing the other day, and so that was super scary for me. But being able to just kind of reboot to myself to meditate and to practice those breathings where I could just disconnect from my anxiety and to perform how I needed to. But that's one mindfulness skill that I think I'll forever keep, because it does help me with my anxiety and help me to kind of just be able to perform well as an attorney. So yeah, I think those things are what will help you.
So I went to law school a long time ago, and at that time, there really was no discussion about mindfulness and wellness, and I had no wellness in my life during law school, and quite frankly, for a while after. It wasn't until sometime after I came out of law school where the burnout just really caught up with me, which was, just really an accumulation of years of just doing, going, and striving, and not really taking care of Stephanie or making decisions that best served me and my body, right? And so mindfulness came into my life when, I sort of looked and, I was starting to have health consequences from not taking care of Stephanie, and realizing that, either I need to, make a shift now before it's too late. And I have I have chronic conditions that there's no turning back from. So I'm not really carrying anything into my years of practice from law school, but mindfulness has been an integral part of me taking care of myself as a lawyer, as a person. And so I engage in a broad range of practices. Mindfulness has different components to it. You can approach it in different ways, right? So there's the sitting meditation. When I started the practice, I couldn't do the sitting meditation. The mind just was too busy. And nobody had told me what I know now, which is that that's normal, right? And that's part of the practice, is learning how to just sort of let all that float in the background. I started with moving meditation, ancient Chinese practice called Qigong. For some people, the moving meditation might be yoga or walking meditation. And then that other part of how you meet your day, right? So that's an informal part of mindfulness practice. And that's also a huge part of my life, taking care of my body, checking in on, getting greater awareness about assumptions that I'm making that I have no, basis for, that are leading me to make decisions that, don't serve me well, whether it's limiting beliefs, mindful eating, and so on and so forth, as a way to stay healthy and be able to give my best, both as a lawyer and, as a person in general.
And I really appreciate both of your comments. I think that honestly captures the experience that a lot of law students are currently going through, especially getting our legal education in the midst of a pandemic, but expected to shift back to a state of normalcy while not acknowledging everything that's surrounding us. And especially coming from the perspective of like a Black woman and just being a part of the Black community, all of just the systemic abuses that we have to face and coming in from every which single direction, and how we consistently see trauma, one can almost say, on a daily basis. And so leaning into my next question, I guess I'm going to frame it around anxiety and mental health and taking care of self. What does that look like for a law student today? And how do you maintain that and not get lost? I guess I'm going to categorize it as within the noise.
Yeah, so I guess I can answer this first. So like I had said before, like I do have anxiety. I've always had it. So going into law school, it just amplified it that much more. And I do want to share. So in my first year of law school, I also, so right before that, so my husband was in the Air Force at that time. And so he was stationed for a year in Korea. So during my first year, it was just me and my son. And that was a really, really tough year. So your first year on top of, a very like a lot of home obligations. And with my anxiety, that just was like the perfect circumstance of just a lot going on, very overwhelming. So what I did do is a lot of positive outlook, a lot of optimism, but then also just having a talk with myself. I guess just having a talk with myself, telling myself that you just had mentioned like the system's kind of just, it is kind of traumatizing as a minority person. In law school, like it's not meant to support, I guess what I felt like was my type of person. So I was a first generation law student. I was a minority student. I also was a mom. And at that law school, my class was like, I was one of two Native people in my class. So I didn't have that peer support group. And, Native students, or I guess minority students, do not have a high success rate to pass and also to pass the bar. So it was like this whole law school system was not set up to be really that great for my type of person. So, at that time I did have a talk with myself, like, and saying, hey, this system's not built for you, but you're either going to give up or push through. But if I did give up, it's, I guess that means that someone else is going to pursue, who else is going to pursue your objective? Not going to be someone who has the best interest or has a perspective of me. And I didn't want that. So it was either I give up and someone else, takes a job to advocate for natives, and they may not have my best perspective that I have, or I do it and just push through and continue it. So I think that thought was like, either I'm going to do it or someone else is going to do it, and they're not going to do a great job. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through this, and I'm going to do it. And even now, when, at work and being a new lawyer, I do get those moments where I'm like, oh, this is so hard, and all this stuff is new. But, as a new lawyer, either I'm going to make it work and figure this out, or someone else is going to do it, and they're not going to do a great job like I would. So I do have a lot of those kind of mindsets a lot of the times. But again, going back to the first year, that was hard. I did have that self-talk, but then I did rely on meditation and those mindfulness skills. And I did complete my first year. And then again, like I told you, I did transfer. So having better circumstances the second year and the third year, and also my husband did return from his deployment. So I did have a lot more help at home. And practicing those mindfulness skills, like I shared that I do a lot of breathing that helps with the anxiety, but then also, I mean, there's a lot of external things that you can't control, but just having those self-talks and having whatever is going to give you kind of like a mantra. So like I told you, my mantra was like, I need to push through. I need to be that person who's going to advocate for, my type of people. So I have to do this. I have to graduate law school. I have to be a lawyer, and I have to, pursue what I want to do. So keeping that mindset and practicing those mindfulness skills really helped. And I also do want to share, during my last year, I took a class in mindfulness, and that really refined what it is and how it looks for mindfulness to be incorporated as being a lawyer. And so I think if you have a class like that at your law school, to really jump on that and to take that, because that really taught me what it looks like to learn new techniques, and also how to be mindful when you're actually practicing. And so that's really what changed me and helped me get excited. I'm like, oh, okay, I can still practice mindfulness, but then also be a lawyer. But yeah, I think learning a strategy that helps for you, but then also having those self-talks and what's going to make you motivated is what's going to help you, I guess, make it through law school, and also make it through to be an attorney.
I think the points that Shayla made are really important. This concept of knowing your why you're there, can make such a big difference in, having a sense of purpose and rising above all of the challenges that you face as a minority in a majority institution, the microaggressions and so on and so forth. So having a really good understanding of why you're there and what you want to achieve and where you want to go can really make a difference. Another thing that I would mention is being responsible for your emotions, which is a big part of what mindfulness can help you do, because you're going to experience the microaggressions and the macroaggressions, that come with discrimination and other and all the various isms that are out there. And so understanding that you have a choice about how you respond, and how you recover from the experience can also make a difference. So you have a feeling of self-agency, right? That you have a choice about how you're going to engage or not, and whether or not you're going to let the accumulation of those experiences take you off track or not. So I mean, that's part of the objective, right? Is to distract. So making a decision that I'm here for this purpose, and I'm going to stay focused on what it is I want to accomplish. And then amidst, in terms of the day-to-day, is setting your boundaries, so that you can you can focus on your priorities. That's another way of helping you to not get distracted by all of the other things, all the noise that's going on around you. Understanding your values, understanding your priorities, and then sticking to them.
Yeah, and Stephanie, that's actually like a perfect flow into my next question / topic of boundaries. So how does one institute boundaries in their personal, professional, and academic life?
So this is an area where, whether you're in your 20s or your 50s, it can be a challenge. And the earlier you learn it, the better off you're at. First, if you don't mind, I'd like to share a little bit about what mindfulness has to do with boundaries. I mean, why is that part of a discussion about mindfulness? And remembering that mindfulness is about present moment, non-judgmental awareness, right? So this awareness of what's happening to you in the moment. So it helps you to increase your awareness about what boundaries you need to set. You might not even know you have a choice. And most of the time you do when your boundaries have been breached. For instance, your role in establishing expectations. You have a role to play. You know, people don't know that, they don't know what your boundaries are unless you make it clear, unless you're clear on them and you make it clear by your actions. Learning to sit in the discomfort that can happen when you're setting boundaries. And you know how to set them in a way that is graceful and respects your needs, but is also, you know, gracious when you're talking with others. So how do you? Well, one is, again, being clear on what your priorities and your values are. Until you have a sense of that, it's going to be difficult for you to know where to draw the lines that you need to draw, right? So there are different kinds. There are different ways in which we don't create boundaries. I mean, some of us have what's called porous boundaries, right? Where, you know, we can't say no, right? We're concerned about the opinions of others. We take on other people's problems, and we fear rejection, right? If we don't go along with something. So, you know, part of it is getting a sense of, you know, where you're having your own challenges in terms of boundaries and getting what you need to address those challenges. On the other end, we might be very rigid in our boundaries and be someone who is unlikely to ask for help. Either way you go, rigid or porous, you're heading towards burnout, right? Because you can't say no. So it's important to know where you end in the porous context. It's really important to know where you end and someone else begins, and drawing that line. Okay, this is what I need, and feeling okay for needing that, and feeling okay for communicating that, and then learning how to communicate it, because that's a skill. It's a skill, you know, learning how to say no. And it takes some work to value your own opinion, to say no, and to and accept when others say no to you as well. Does that answer at least the start of your question?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that you established whether it's porous, whether it's a porous boundary, or whether it's a rigid boundary, you're still leading to burnout. So, how does one avoid burnout? And how do you become conscious of it if you're potentially leading down that pathway?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is we can have porous boundaries in one context and healthy boundaries in another, right? We're multidimensional people. So, you know, everything is contextual. So in terms of preventing burnout, a big part of that is learning how to connect with and listen to your body. Actually hear what it's telling you, you know, taking a pause and sitting and actually giving yourself some moments of silence, and, you know, getting out of the head, which is where we spend so much of our time, and into our heart and into our gut, and wherever else our body may be speaking to us. And breathing practices and meditation, sitting meditation and moving meditation are really good for helping you to connect with your body, right? So that's step one, is actually being able to realize what's going on with you in that time. I mean, the body is going to insist that you hear it. You can hear it when it's speaking to you quietly, or you can hear it when it's screaming at you. The consequences are far more severe if you just wait until it's screaming at you. And then it's actually having the courage in our society and our profession to actually listen to your body and act on it as well, to actually learn how to say no. There's lots of reasons why we're afraid to say no, right? There's fear of missing out. There's fear of missing opportunities. We may be a people pleaser. We may be that person who wants to be engaged in everything that's going on, even though that means that we don't have time for ourselves, and we may lack some clarity about what's really most important to us. But there's some real benefits to learning how to say no. One being that you do have time for your own priorities. You're giving other people an opportunity to grow and experience things. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have less resentment. You're going to be more content, right? If you're focused primarily on what's most important to you, and you're taking care, and that includes you're taking care of you. I noticed when I look at lists of values, right? Often health and well-being isn't even on there. So if our health and well-being is not a priority for us, that's going to show up in our actions and in our decisions. So it's about making it a priority and acting on it, taking a mindful pause when you're faced with a decision about whether to say yes or no. And, that there's what is that strategy when you're trying to manage your money? And, some people have a rule: if something costs over a certain amount, like $100, then they're going to sleep on it. Maybe if you're somebody who says yes to everything, maybe giving yourself a hard stop and saying, okay, before I say yes to one more thing, I'm gonna sleep on it. I'm gonna have a rule for myself. I'm not gonna make a decision until I've had some space between the ask and the response. And then making sure that what the things that you're doing are actually aligned with your goals and your values, right? We got a whole lot of doing going on in our society, and law students and lawyers, we're compulsively overachievers, right? We know that we can handle a lot and that we can accomplish a lot, and we might be able to accomplish it better than someone else, but that doesn't mean that we have to. And so the question is, what you're devoting your time and attention to, how is that serving you? Is that moving you forward, or is that keeping you stuck or even holding you back?
No, and I think, you made a lot of amazing points, and really a lot of, a lot of reflective points, truly. And I think everyone can take away from this session about, thinking about, is it holding you back? Is it serving you? What type of boundaries do you institute in your own life? Are they healthy? How can you reflect on that? So I think this is would be a perfect time, Stephanie, if you're willing, to maybe lead the group into a wellness exercise as a part of our closeout.
Okay, we can do a sitting meditation if you like.
Awesome.
So finding your comfortable meditation posture. With your body straightened, aligned, but at ease. And your eyes closed, or if you prefer, just gazing them softly downwards. And checking in with your body. You're not trying to change anything, just noticing what's there for you. Noticing where you may be feeling areas of tightness and tension. Noticing the temperature on your hands. Feeling into the feet and the sensations of the ground, the earth supporting your feet and your whole body. And now bringing your attention to your breath. The in-breath and the out-breath. And again, not changing anything, just letting the breath flow at its own natural pace. Just noticing the sensations of your breathing. This miracle. The air entering the nostrils and flowing down the back of the throat. The rise and fall of the chest and the belly. Nourishing your body. And then feeling the air flow out. You may notice the mind wandering. That's okay, that's natural. The mind wanders. Just noticing and gently and kindly leading your attention back to the sensations of your breathing. Using the breath as an anchor. Focusing your attention on this breath. And this breath. And this breath. It's allowing yourself to rest in this natural flow. Allowing the steady rhythm of the breath to calm the nervous system. To create space within you for new possibilities. Understanding through this practice that you have a choice. You have a choice when your mind wanders to return your attention to the breath. You have a choice when you're feeling restless or bored. To feel into the sensations of that experience of restlessness or boredom. You have a choice to connect with your body in any given present moment. To help you to make decisions that best serve you. Just continuing to breathe at your own natural pace, just allowing the body to be breathed. And bringing your attention back to the breath. And when you're ready, bringing some movement back to your body. And gently opening your eyes. So that is a brief meditation practice. We use the breath, some of the body and the breath in that particular meditation, but you can focus exclusively on the body, different, scanning through the body. You can focus on sounds. There's many different ways of doing that practice. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, um, you can engage in mindfulness in different ways, including through movement and through, a practice involving something that's going on in your day, whether it's a task like brushing your teeth or eating, or in terms of how you interact with other people or respond to other people, just as examples.
Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. I don't know about everyone, excuse me, I don't know about everyone on the call, but I feel a little lighter than when I originally entered the meditation exercise. So thank you. And to all of our participants, thank you so much for attending this event. Your presence was greatly appreciated. And please be on the lookout for upcoming NBLSA events, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Simone.
Yeah, thank you, Simone. Thank you, everyone.